Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. This lesson is about the definition of market failure. So what is market failure? Remember, when I'm talking about market, I'm talking about the free market system. And when I'm talking about the failure, it means I'm talking about the disadvantages of the free market system. So the disadvantages of a market economic system are the result of a market failure. And it occurs when free markets fail to produce outcomes in terms of prices and quantities that are socially or economically desirable. The result of market failures is usually the misallocation of resources, or in other words, I could say the inefficient allocation of the resources. So an example of a market failure would be any product that increases social and economic welfare, such as education and healthcare, may be overpriced or underproduced. And on the other hand, products that reduces social and economic welfare may be underpriced or overproduced. So an example would be Demerit Goods. Now, let us explain what's written here. Some producers and consumers may ignore the harmful effects of their production and even their consumption decisions. So, for example, when I am talking about specifically only the consumers or only the producers, it means I am talking about private costs or benefits. When I am talking about the firms, they are only concerned with their own private benefits and private costs. Their private benefits would be to maximize their profits, so to maximize profits, and their private cost would be when they are paying for the cost of factors of production. Whereas to the consumers, their private benefit would be, for instance, when they are buying a product and they're receiving the satisfaction that they need. So that would be their private benefit. Their private cost, I'm talking about the consumer's point of view, would be, for example, the money that they pay in order to buy the product that we're talking about. So these are some definitions of market failure again. Okay, I would like you to read what's written here. I'm talking about the inefficiency of resource allocation. I am also talking about when the market fails to produce the right product in the right quantity at its lowest possible price. So when a market is unable to produce the desirable outcome in terms of price and quantity, this will lead to a failure in the market economy. Now, let us talk about this failure and what it would lead to. It would lead to two things. First, you need to keep in mind it is leading to something called misallocation of resources. So, which is when capital and labor are being poorly distributed. These are my resources. These are my factors of production. And the second one, it would lead to inefficient allocation. So, inefficient allocation of resources, which is when any kind of scarce resource aren't being used efficiently or at its best use. Okay, so these 2 points listed can lead to social and economic welfare. I want to give you a tip before I discuss the disadvantages of a free market system and what are the consequences. Because later on, so these are the 7 ways a market can fail. Later on, I will be explaining each way by itself separately. But in discussing whether, so I want to give you a tip, which is in discussing whether a market system works well or any other economic issue, consider the arguments for and against. Okay, and what is the appropriate way in order to come to a conclusion at the end. Okay, so let's start off right now with the first way a market can fail. Public goods will not be provided. Remember, there is no government intervention in a free market. So no private firm would want to provide for us, for example, street lights, because it is not profit oriented. So what I will be saying about public goods, you need to learn that they are non-excludable, and I can say they are non-arrival. What do I mean by these two terms? Non-excludable, if provided to one consumer, all other consumers will also get the benefit. So for example, if a private firm wanted to provide the street lights to one person and they only took the amount of money from one person, this is somehow unfair because everyone would be benefiting, but they only got paid from one. Non-rival, what do I mean by non-rival? As more and more people consume the product, the benefit to the others will not decrease. So this is what is meant by a public good. So again, for public goods, if it was left to the market, no one will want to produce the public goods. Okay? So the private firms will not supply us with them because they cannot charge us for these goods. And if they aren't receiving any profits, they would not want to provide it for the people. For this reason, the government is able to supply public goods. How? Because they collect taxes from everyone in the economy. Okay? So excludable goods, what will they be? So if I said non-excludable or the public goods, so excludable goods will be considered private goods. Okay? And a rival good is a type of excludable good because it can only be possessed or consumed by a single user. Now, the second way a market can fail is that too few merit goods will be supplied and consumed. What are merit goods? Merit goods are goods provided to us by the government, but usually the government was thinking about the less fortunate. Okay, so again, merit goods, they will benefit the society economically and socially. The more people consume merit goods, the better it is for them and everyone else. So merit goods, so it is better if we consume them. Let us write it down. Merit goods are expensive to supply and require large numbers of people. So sometimes products like these require people with wealth or people that have high income. As a result, not too many people will benefit from the consumption or usage of these goods and services. Therefore, there will be underconsumption and under provision of this good. So the demand on it would be less, but we know that the demand on merit goods, it should be more, but it isn't. Therefore, I say they are under consumed or underproduced. What are demerit goods? Demerit goods are the opposite thing of merit goods. So when I'm talking about demerit goods, they do not benefit us. On the contrary, they are harmful goods. And these goods are always oversupplied. Why? Because to the private sector firms, it makes them make more profits because they are usually the addictive substances. So no matter what the price, the consumers will keep on buying these products. Okay? So you got to remember that they are oversupplied, where I can say they are overproduced and therefore as well consumed. An example of a demerit good, any harmful product that you can think of, it would be an example. So for example, cigarettes. They can cause lung cancer and lung diseases. Alcohol. It is a social problem. If consumed a lot, it would create a social problems, and at the same time, it would lead to health problems. Drugs. I know you're going to tell me they're illegal, but remember, I'm talking about a free market. So there is nothing that is illegal because there will be no government intervention. So drugs will be overconsumed and overproduced, and at the same time, we know that they will lead to harmful effects on the people and even on the society. Okay? So, as a conclusion, I know that the demand on demerit goods, I should have less demand on it, but unfortunately, it is not the case. They are overproduced. The fourth way is the firms may exploit their consumers and their employees. What do I mean by the term exploit? You might be wondering. To exploit someone is to take advantage of someone, all right? So when I am talking about this way, I need you to think of powerful firms in a free market economy. These powerful firms or the dominant firms, they sometimes may reduce the supply of a product so they can increase the price, and the consumer will have to pay for it because they will end up buying it no matter what. They are the only ones supplying us with these products. Now, if these firms have few competitors and the product doesn't have any substitute or any alternative, consumers would find it difficult to switch their demand to the other substitutes. Okay? Um, when I end up paying more for a certain product, because I am forced to pay for it a very high or expensive price, I am left with less money, less income. Okay? So remember, when I am talking about the firm's exploitation to their consumers and to their employees, I would be mainly talking about monopoly, which means the firm is the only one that is controlling the market supply and the price of the product. Okay? And how can a firm exploit its employees, take advantage of them by paying them less wages? They will pay them less than what they actually deserve. Okay, and they will not give them the suitable working conditions. Probably they would make them work overtime without getting paid extra and so on. Okay? The fifth way is factor immobility. Remember, whenever I'm talking about factor, I'm talking about factors of production. So specifically in this example, I would be talking about labor and I would be talking about capital. Okay? Now, factor immobility is a cause of market failure because it stops the economic system from allocating the resources in the most efficient way. All right? So what do I mean? What do I mean by obstructs the ability of firms to allocate their resources efficiently? They would not do that because they're not using their resources to the fullest. They will only use whatever is cheaper for them as a cost of production. Now, number 6 is goods and services with significant external costs may be overprovided. So the production of some goods and services might cause, for example, air, water, and even noise pollution that can badly affect other firms and consumers. When this is happening, it is affecting a third party, right? So this imposes external costs on others, and these others would be considered my third party. Private firms will continue to make goods and services that cause pollution only and only if it was profitable for them. So the firms will not take into consideration these external costs as long as they're making money. Okay? Finally, goods and services with significant external benefits may be underprovided, and we already explained that. Usually, these goods that are good, that are beneficial, such as the merit goods in an economy, these goods are usually underprovided. So let us give an example about vaccines. Okay? When you get vaccinated, the vaccine will protect you from the disease and prevents you from passing the disease to others. However, vaccinations can be expensive, so private companies would want to charge high rates in a free market environment for vaccines that cover their production costs and make a profit out of selling this vaccine. Now, the less the demand on the vaccines because it's very expensive, and the population as a whole, therefore, would be considered less safe, okay, because they will be not buying the vaccine and they will be easily spreading out the disease. If people won't take vaccines, then there will be less learning. We would go online as what's happening to us right now. There will be less working days, so productivity, less job days, all right? So the productivity of the workers and the output to the company is decreasing. So in a free market economy, products and services that have an external advantage, such as vaccines, are therefore likely to be underprovided and underconsumed. Okay? This is an example. What do I mean by externalities? So, as you can see, externalities could either be positive or negative. Let's start off by positive externalities. As you can see here in both images, I have a drug factory. And here, when I am saying drug, I am meaning the pharmaceutical industry. So I'm talking about medication. Okay, so the positive externality is that these guys are producing the drugs, the factories are producing the drugs or the medicine. They are creating job opportunities for the people because they would need to produce more medicine, so they need to hire more labor in order to keep up with the output. Okay, and at the same time, because I am not being sick because I'm taking medicine, look what's happening. Output rises as fewer workers take sick leave. So I can never call my job and tell them, sorry, I'm sick today. I cannot come to work. No, I'd take the medication and I'd be okay. I'd go to my work and I would continue with the production of my goods and services. So this is considered a positive externality. I would like to give you some other examples about positive externalities. It could be education, so the level of education, or it could be the use of technology. It could be technology, or it could be, for example, vaccination of the people. This would lead to a positive externality. Okay, and so it is when consuming or producing a good that causes a benefit to a third party. Okay, now when I want to talk about the negative externalities, as you can see, the same factory, if it created pollution, so or the destruction of the environment, I would consider that something bad. So that would be a negative externality. So what is the definition of a negative externality? It is when we consume or produce a good that causes a cost to a third party. So remember, this is creating a benefit to a third party, whereas this is creating a cost to a third party. And again, I would mention third party, it is someone that was not involved with our decision. So what are private costs? I want to break down each and every kind of cost and benefit here. what are the private costs and benefits to a private sector firm. When I am talking about a private sector firm, its aim is to maximize profits or minimize costs or losses. Okay, so they would always aim at making more money. So for me as a firm, my private cost would be when I have to pay wages for my workers, when I have to pay rent, when I have to pay for insurance policies or all kind of bills that my firm is facing. Whereas on the other hand, my private benefits would be the money I receive from selling an item, which I would call a revenue. All right? So I am done with the private costs and benefits to a private firm. I want to start off with what are they for the consumer. For me as a consumer, so I am the person that is buying the good or services. Usually I would not buy a good or service if it is not making me happy. So my aim is to maximize my own satisfaction, or a new economic term that you will be learning now would be called or known as utility. My private cost to me as a consumer would be so something that I am paying. So it would be when I am paying in order to buy that particular good or service. So that would be my private cost. Whereas my private benefit, I already bought the product, so I should be happy using or consuming that product that I already bought. Now the term external. External costs. So I am talking about the disadvantages, something that is affecting a third party negatively. So usually I would like you to think of it as a cost incurred by another party, but not by those responsible for the harmful activity itself. So there are two types of external costs. I would have a negative externality, which is a cost imposed on people or organizations that did not agree to the action that caused it. So for example, as you can see in these photos, here I am having drought, here I am having air pollution from the factories, and here I am having water pollution from the wrong disposal of our own plastic garbage. So at that point here, these actions, I had nothing to do with it, but I was negatively affected. Therefore, I would call it an external cost. Now, let me start off by explaining what is an external benefit. Okay, so this is the second point, or a positive external. Now, how can I calculate social costs? What are social costs? Social costs is when I take into consideration the two costs, both the private and the external. So the private cost of a product along with its external cost to a society would be known as a social cost. And here there is an example about air pollution in China. Due to factories, it has led to masks being worn by most of the population. So this is a social cost. It's both the private costs increased, I ended up paying more on the masks, and the external costs, which is the pollution. I had nothing to do with it from the factory. Both of these costs, they make up something called the total social cost. An external benefit would be, look, so we're talking about vaccinations, and we're talking about less pollution. People are not using their cars, they're using bikes. So an external benefit would be known as a benefit enjoyed by another party or the third party without that party having to pay for it. So for example, one person, a single household, buys a burglar alarm system. So this would deter possible burglars from the whole neighborhood. Okay, so only one person bought it. All the people living near me in the neighborhood, they are benefiting, but they didn't have to do anything with that decision. I am the one that decided to buy that alarm system, and they are benefiting out of it. Therefore, I would consider it an external benefit or a positive externality. Now, what do we mean by social benefits? Social benefits, it is when I add both kinds of benefits together, both the private and the external. So the private benefit of a product along with the benefits it creates for the society would be known as a social benefit. Okay, and this is how we find it. And here is another example of, for example, a nuclear power plant. This is a much safer and greener alternative to fossil fuels. How can I decide whether I should continue using my resources the way I was, or I should stop using my resources the way I am and do something called resource reallocation? So I need to ask myself again, how should I produce, what to produce, and for whom to produce? So how can I measure that? I would measure social benefit with the social cost. If the benefit is greater than, good on you. Continue doing whatever you were doing. And I would call that an economic use of resources. Or I would say this is an economic welfare. So economic welfare can be improved by encouraging more production and consumption if it shows the productive activity is better off to allocate more resources to it. So for example, I need to open more parks, provide more healthcare, more education, because I noticed that the benefit, the social benefit it creates was much greater than that of the social cost. However, on the other hand, I would say I would be having an uneconomic use of resources when my costs are the ones that are greater than the benefit. So here, economic welfare can be improved by reducing production and consumption. So the society here would be better off and economic welfare will be higher. Then the same resources should be allocated to another use. So don't use these resources in order to produce whatever this factory was producing, because the cost was much greater than the social benefit. Now, what do I mean by something called overproduction and underproduction? As you can see here, I have two different um, um, graphs. So here I am talking about overproduction. And when I am talking about overproduction, it means they are producing more than what they are supposed to. Okay, what kind of goods are overproduced? We know that they would be the demerit goods because it would be profitable in a free market economy. Now, the underproduced, as you can see here, it would be the merit goods. Merit goods are usually the goods that are underproduced or consumed. So as you can see here, instead of it being produced at that point, they are always being underproduced. Okay? Because it is not profitable for the private sector firm to produce it. Now, I would like to address some misconceptions. It is when you guys have to differentiate between private positive externality and a social benefit. Usually, this kind of question comes in an analyze question. Okay, so my advice to you would be market failure results in overconsumption of the demerit or the harmful goods with external costs, and the underconsumption of merit goods and goods with external benefits. So if left to the market forces, which is the demand and the supply, public goods would not be produced because it does not make any profits. And here also I would like to add one thing. The monopoly power can result in very high prices, and it restricts supply of the product. So it's creating on purpose a shortage of the product in order to increase the price of the product, and they would be making more money out of it. Okay, and also one more thing, factor immobility. It can be a cause of a shortage or a surplus. Now, these are some key terms. I would like you to pause the video and have a look at it. We already explained all of them. There's only just one more new key term that probably you don't know what it is, but in case you see the term profit as a commercial return, know that it means the same thing. So guys, what we will be doing from now on, I will be introducing some new key terms. I need you to make sure you are always using them in your writing, okay? So now, how can I calculate social costs? So social costs would be equal to private costs plus external costs. And on the other hand, in order to calculate social benefit, I need to add both the private and the external benefit. Now, this is something extra that I would like you to have a look at. When I am talking about resources, sometimes I might be able to use my resources or conserve them. When I am talking about using my resources, it means I am using them now. And why would I be doing that? Because if all resources are used now, the future generations cannot be benefiting from it. So this is something bad for future generations. Whereas if I want to talk about conserving my resources, it means I am saving them for later, for future generations. It means this means I am using my resources a bit slowly or gradually, so in a sustainable way, and this will allow future generations to enjoy the benefits of it. So guys, please, as you can see here, I am contradicting myself. It's either I am using my resources now or I would be conserving them for future uses. So this is a great example of a discuss question. Another thing that I would like you to keep a note of, it's whenever I am talking about expenditure. Expenditure, it means I am spending. So here it could either be a public spending, which means the government is the one spending, and usually the government would be spending on public goods. They would be also spending on merit goods. They will be spending on giving subsidies to firm or paying pension for the elderly. A private expenditure, on the other hand, it's for me as a consumer or as a private producer spending money. So, for example, for me as a consumer, I would be spending money in order to pay for my goods and services, in order to buy them. Whereas from the private sector point of view or from the supplier's point of view, they will be spending money in order to pay for their factors of production. This is a key term that is about information failure, and this could be one disadvantage that you can add to the free market system. Okay, what do we mean by information failure, guys? Here I'm talking about it can happen in a number of ways. There may be a lack of information or inaccurate information from both the producer's point of view and the consumer. To me, as a consumer, I would not be knowing enough information about the product that I am buying. And from the producer's point of view, he might not know how much exactly he needs to produce. He doesn't have the accurate information in order to make the efficient quantity, to produce the efficient amount of goods or services. Merit versus demerit goods. This is like what we're doing right now is like a summary, all right? So when I'm talking about merit goods, they are goods provided to us by the government and they benefit us, but unfortunately, they will always be underproduced in a free market economy. Whereas demerit goods, they are goods that harm us, they are not good for us, but unfortunately, in a free market economy, they would always be overproduced or overconsumed. We already explained the difference between a public and a private good, so I would just like to go over it real quick. A public good is a good that is non-rival and non-excludable. These are the new key terms that I need you to really know. However, the private good is both rival and excludable. Okay? This is the last term that I would be explaining. I just want you to know that private sector firms may be interested in making quick profits and may not plan for times ahead. So even if it's in the short term, and I call it short-termism, the private sector firms will be making profits. They don't care. They will continue producing whatever it is, even if it was harming the third party. So such a short-sighted approach can result in a lack of investment because I'm not thinking about the future. I would only be thinking about right now, the time being, so in the short term. So as a result, what will the government do? The government may have to stimulate private sector investment by, for example, they want them to invest more. They want them to produce more, not only for now, but even for the long run. So what they will be doing is they will be cutting down taxes on these firms, or also the government would interfere and provide them with some kind of a subsidy in order to look ahead and not only for now. So guys, that would be it for our lesson. And I would like you to type down in the comment box if you would like me to re-explain one certain idea. And please make sure you are writing notes while watching the video. Have a lovely evening and good luck.